In the new season of Rainbow Six Siege, PC players will no longer be able to open up Rainbow Six Siege in Vulkan mode. So first of all, what the hell is Vulkan? Well, it's a graphical API, just like DirectX is, and Microsoft makes DirectX 11 and 12, and then Vulkan was an open source API with a lot of support from AMD, with the focus on attempting to get as much performance out of your hardware as possible. And although supported by AMD, it was also able to get more performance out of NVIDIA cards as well. And in this video, we'll be benchmarking to see if we lose or gain FPS on different hardware configurations. And Vulkan was originally added to Rainbow Six Siege back in 2020, and it has been an API that I use whenever I'm playing the game on PC. And it also saved my bacon because my series of Mythbuster videos, I needed a second character to do lots of tests with, and I only had a relatively old laptop that was quite low end, and it would play Siege at about 10 FPS for that second character, whereas with Vulkan, I could get up to something like 30 FPS, which was a lot more usable. So this season, when it was announced that Vulkan would be removed from the game, replaced with DirectX 12 instead, I was a bit sad to hear the news, and the test server was also a stuttery mess, so it was not looking good right from the get-go. However, thankfully, patches to the test server resulted in a lot of those issues going away, and we did get a PR response letting us know why this had happened, and they've said at its core, this is a tech decision and it's been made to better position Siege for the future, while also ensuring that Siege tech aligns with others inside and outside of Ubisoft. The bonus is an optimization of resources that allows us to put more focus on the game itself. And this has also come with an update to the minimum system requirements. So you can still play this game on a potato, but it has to be a slightly better potato now. And then the systems we'll be testing today is my old laptop, which when I say old, I was actually using this to edit videos at the 6th Invitational this year. So this is still a usable editing computer. Not good for gaming though. But this is running Windows 10. It's got an i7-8550U CPU, 1.8 gigahertz. It's got an NVIDIA 940MX mobile graphics card, and we've got the latest drivers that this thing can run. Then we've got some AMD representation. This is on Windows 11, this one, and it's AMD Ryzen 9 8945HS, and it's a mobile CPU with onboard graphics, so it's a Radeon 780M. And then representing our high end is a 13th Gen i9 13900KF and an NVIDIA 4090. Now, unfortunately, I'm not a hardware tester, so this is all we have to go on, but hopefully this will give us a bit of a range from low, medium to high end. So let's check out the results. What I've actually done here is I've edited in a V for Vulkan here, and for the DirectX 12 results, I've put that up here just so you can easily see it when I flip them between them. And you can see this is our low-end laptop. So it got an average FPS of 28, minimum 21, maximum 35, and that is for Vulkan. Moving over to our DirectX 12 results, we got 29 FPS average, 19 minimum, and maximum 37. The big differences here are that in our Vulkan test, you can see that the GPU isn't doing anything kind of mental, whereas the CPU does have a spike here. And this actually, in the DirectX 12 version, is replicated, but you'll also see in the GPU section we have the same spike. So this would give you a bit of a stutter. As a result, it looks like Vulkan is managing to get a slightly more smoother performance out of this old laptop than DirectX 12 is. But the rest of it looks pretty good. The FPS are actually almost identical to each other. And yeah, we're basically a couple of FPS out from each other. So good result overall for DirectX 12, apart from this extra stutter, which shows up in the GPU. So let's move up to our AMD. So this is our mobile AMD CPU with mobile integrated graphics. We can see on Vulkan here with FSR off, we're getting 73 average, 53 minimum, 88 maximum, and this is at 1440p. Now moving over to our DirectX 12 results, we got 86, 70, and 107. So we actually did quite significantly better in DirectX 12 with FSR off. The graphs as well actually show quite a few stutters from the CPU and the GPU here with Vulkan, whereas it is not nearly as bad in DirectX 12. The newer hardware here seems to be much preferring DirectX 12 over Vulkan, and did really freaking well. So DirectX 12 did a great job here with FSR off, and yeah, very happy with this. So let's see what happens when we put FSR on. So in Vulkan, you can see it seems to smooth out our stutters, and we get 82, 67, and 98. Moving over to DirectX with FSR on, you can see we've got 97, 78, and 123, and nothing crazy bad here. We can see a little spike up here, but it doesn't look like it's anything to worry about. It actually matches these other peaks here. So overall, looking quite good. And let's just see, that's a latency of about 11 and 13 there. Looked at the other ones, yeah, we're actually looking at a pretty similar numbers overall. So yeah, not bad and reasonable there. So that's with FSR on, with DirectX 12 and then Vulkan. So yeah, good numbers overall. Moving up to our high end, so this is our 4090 rendering at 4K with a lot of the graphical settings on. And as you can see, we got 257, 224, and 295. Looking at our DirectX 12 results, we got 264, 192, 309. So kind of comparable to each other and not a major overall thing, apart from Vulkan did manage to get better minimums than our DirectX 12, but our DirectX 12 did manage to get slightly more maximum. So overall, quite similar and a better average out of DirectX 12. And we did get a bit of a stutter here, and when I say stutter, not really a stutter in this case, because we dropped down to about 226 FPS here, and you can see that spiking up on the CPU. GPU looked relatively fine. DirectX 12, exactly the same spike, but we also got one here on this GPU as well, and we got a drop down to 192 compared to that drop of 226 here. So again, just like we see with the low-end hardware, Vulkan is able to get a slightly smoother performance out of the game than we can actually get from DirectX. But when it comes to overall FPS and stuff like that, DirectX is actually doing pretty damn good. So that moves us now into conclusion. Now this was supposed to be a pretty clean-cut conclusion, and my first take of this was actually that Vulkan is great. Its introduction in 2020 to Rainbow Six Siege was wonderful, and the DirectX 12 appears to have caught up performance-wise and overall has all the bells and whistles that Vulkan is known for and used for in Siege. But I continued testing outside of the benchmarks and things were just not looking good for DirectX 12. Now I'm playing on the final version of the test server, which should be the one that goes live for the new season on September 10th, and I was noticing it looked like shit. And I was like, why does it look so bad? So I went into the settings and I went down to the render scaling. So I've got anti-aliasing on for TA4X. This means it's going to render all the way up to like basically 4K. And I was noticing it said in the menus that it was rendering at 1360 by 764. Now, thankfully my benchmarks never ran at that resolution, but if I simply put it down one setting and back up, it was suddenly now wanting to render at 1920 by 1080. And again, that's not correct. So I went and I actually shoved it down from the 4x to the 2x and then back up again. And now it wanted to render at 4K, where I'm pretty sure this is what it should have been doing right from the start. And then I was also noting stuttering. So the video I was actually recording at the time was the new speed boost for the drones. And I was having just a mess around driving the drones all over the place, but I was getting pretty consistent stutters. And then I decided, all right, I'm going to see if I can figure out if we can get some good stuff recorded here so we can actually see it. This is the best example, firing off an ash round at a door, and boom, the ash round gives us a major stutter. Now, it doesn't do it for the second one, and as far as I can tell, it's the first one that you fire off that's the major stutter. But this is very noticeable. And unfortunately, that means that my previous kind of conclusion where I was going to go, okay, the benchmark data looks quite good, don't see too much stutter in it. I run a bunch of benchmarks, try and figure out if I can get any stutters to show up in the benchmarks. I couldn't quite get them, nothing like what we see in actual gameplay here. So I was unable to replicate these results in the benchmark. But what I'll say is, of course, this is a first-person shooter. High FPS on PC is usually what people are going after, and these kind of stutters are just not acceptable. So I think the conclusion now is that this is extremely bad and it'll be very noticeable. Now, maybe the launch version of the game is better and for some reason runs smoother, but kind of expecting with Siege that not to be the case. I think this is going to result in at least a couple more weeks of this game running really bad in DirectX 12 before it's resolved. Now currently, there's actually a bug in the game where if you're running DirectX 11, it crashes and you have to play Vulkan to not get the crashes. So you can imagine if that kind of issue continues and suddenly DirectX 12 is getting chucked in there and it's also crashing, it could end up being an absolute mess. So I'm kind of sad now that actually Vulkan is gone. At first I was thinking, okay, maybe we're getting away from it and DirectX 12 is the next generation, let's go for it and move on. but now I'm a bit worried that this is going to end up being a very bad launch to the game on PC with these stutters and also those resolution issues. So I'm going to recommend probably when the new season launches that you play it in DirectX 11 if it's not crashing where the current version is, and maybe stay away from DirectX 12 until they fix it, which of course means lower performance for a lot of players, and that's not good overall. So yeah, conclusion here is unfortunately very bad from these results. The benchmarks looked fine, but the actual gameplay has noticeable stutters, and we also have rendering issues with TAA as it's rendering at potentially an incredibly low resolution. Now, because I'm testing on a limited selection of hardware here, I'd love to know what your experience is with the new season. So in the comments below, leave your system specs, how it's running, what kind of FPS you're getting, and if you can, try and do a test before the new season launches, like just a rough benchmark, get some FPS numbers, and then test it after and see how you're sitting with the new season. And let me know if you are seeing stutters, and if you're seeing it with specific stuff like we've seen with the Ash charge here. But certainly I love the comments to be full of people just testing and seeing how different hardware is playing. There also should be hardware that just cannot run DirectX 12, and I'd love to know what that hardware is, and of course if you're using it every day to play Rainbow Six Siege. Anyway guys, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.